Help, I'm being held hostage in the basement of Mike Dell's house. Okay, I'll say it. You're listening to Mike Dell's World.
Okay, Mark, well, thanks for saying the magic words there. We'll send a sandwich down for you in a little bit. Welcome to November 1st. This is Mike Dell's World, the NaPodPoMo 21 edition. And today we're going to talk a little bit about podcasting, since that's what I'm going to do every Monday show. It's going to be about podcasting. And every Tuesday show is going to be about my hometown, Traverse City, or something similar, and so on and so forth. We have subject matter for each day of the week for the whole month of November, except for the last two episodes. Last two episodes, I'm going to shake things up a little bit, and we'll call it, we'll do 4 episodes on each of the subject matters, and then we get to just sort of wing it for the last couple, which is kind of how I do it anyway. I sort of just wing it, but I'm going to be a little more structured this year. Of course, if you're not familiar with NaPodPoMo or National Podcast Posting Month, go check out NaPodPoMo.org. And that's where a bunch of podcasters get together to make sure that they put out 30 episodes in 30 days. And some of them are making special podcasts. Some are just adding to their normal podcast rotation, or like me, I don't have a normal podcast rotation. So here's what you get. So why did I start podcasting, and a little bit of history about that? Well, I used to love to play the lottery, and part of playing the lottery is sitting there and daydreaming about what you would do if you won the lottery. You know, and I was working night shift at a printing plant, overnights. Wow, almost 17 years ago, 16 and a half years ago anyway. Near as I can remember, it was in April of 2005. It was before Apple announced that they were adding podcasting to iTunes by at least a month or two. But I don't have the first 35 episodes of this podcast, which was originally called The Benzoid Report. And if you notice your cover art, if you're using Overcast, or if you've come to the website, you'll see that I've got the old Benzoid Report logo up. I used a flying pig cartoon image, otherwise known as a Pegasus. There was a quite the backstory with that too, but we'll leave that for another time. But anyway, I remember I said about the lottery, so I bought some lottery tickets, and I was at work working my third shift all by myself at the printing plant, so there wasn't really a lot to think about at that time. I had already started listening to a few podcasts. I had a iPod, I don't know, a shuffle, I think they call it. It looked like a stick of gum. It was the first version of the shuffle. In fact, it's sitting about 4 feet away from me over on the ham desk, because I actually do use that a little tiny bit still. Certain recordings I make on the ham computer, I'll put on there, and that way I can listen to them in more depth. But anyway, that was... So that one is still works. The battery doesn't last very long, and I kind of leave it plugged in all the time and whatever. But that's what I was listening to podcasts on. And some were podcasts and some were radio shows that the host would put on our website just as MP3 files to download. And Bruce Williams used to do that. He'd do 3 hours, so, I'd work 8 hours. So I got 3 hours of Bruce Williams, and usually I could find enough other podcasts to stick on my 512 kilobyte sized iPod, which would, get me 8 hours ish, depending on how it was done and, what shows were on that night. But there were some nights where I had to reload the iPod, which I could do. But anyway, back to the lottery thing. I'm sitting here, what am I going to do? If I won the lottery, what would I do? I always thought, well, I'd buy a radio station, an old AM radio station, and then I'd be able to have my own radio show, and then I could, other people that wanted their own radio show could have their own radio show, and it'd be great, and blah blah blah, just thinking about that, and used to just sort of daydream about wanting to, have a radio show, and I'm not the most dynamic speaker in the world sometimes, and who knows, but I probably wouldn't make it on terrestrial radio doing a talk show 3 hours a day. Probably not. Although I probably would have got good at it. But anyway, that's the genesis of the idea. And then, I was single at the time. I had one of those things called a replay TV, which was kind of the TV equivalent of podcasting. It's TiVo. It was basically like TiVo, but this was better. And I used to record the screensavers on Tech TV. Before that was called ZD TV. And Leo Laporte and Kate Patello kept talking about these things called podcasts that they were hearing about and listening and all that. And then Kate, went off to a different TV show over there. Didn't really hear much from her. And, Leo got a bunch of people together. This was like, I think as Tech TV was starting to fade out or fizzle a little bit later, and came up with TWIT, and This Week in Tech. And that wasn't the first podcast I listened to. The first actual podcast I listened to, I believe, was Adam Curry's Daily Source Code, or it very well could have been Yeast Radio. Madge Weinstein, which I don't know. I think it was Adam. I hope it was Adam. So anyway, here's Adam.
Go podcasting!
Anyway, it's his Go Podcasting mic drop. In fact, Mark, this is, historical. You've heard Mark before. Probably most of y'all know who he is, but in case there's some new listeners here, Mark Yoshimoto Nemcoff used to do a show called Pacific Coast Hellway, where he ostensibly drove his BMW down the Pacific Coast Highway on his way to work in Venice at the office from wherever it was he lived. And of course, how truthful that was, I don't know. But anyway, good old, Mark's a good egg and been around podcasting forever. He used to run the Pod Show offices in L.A. when they were based in San Francisco. So, and he used to do a lot of that stuff for podcasting. Now he does a lot of voiceover work, and when he warms up, he does things like this.
Is the world out there just driving you crazy? Well, listen to something just a little bit less crazy. This is Mike Dell's World.
Yeah, so when he's warming up, sometimes he'll send me a file of different intros and things for this show. I've got a whole pile of them. So anyway, let's say that 17 times. Everybody keeping count. So, okay. Can't think of the next sentence I want to say. Well, we're just going to leave this in there because it's all about podcasting, and podcasting is all about the warts. So maybe I'll edit some of the other ones. I don't know. But I think I was in the story where I was daydreaming about a radio station and the lottery and all that stuff. Well, of course, that didn't happen. And, I started listening to more and more podcasts and all that. And I said, and I was listening to this squeaky voice dude out in Hawaii, or maybe he wasn't even in Hawaii then. No, I think he was. He was in Texas, actually, but lived in Hawaii. Todd Cochran. From Geek News Central. And I listened to several of his shows, and he was talking about, how it's not that hard to do a podcast. And, all right, well, let's see how hard it is. And I had just gotten a laptop, a little 12-inch Dell laptop running Windows XP. It was brand spanking new. And, pretty close. And it came with this little stick microphone. I thought that'd be all right. I'll plug the stick microphone in the microphone jack and sit out on my porch in Lake Ann, and couldn't think of a good name. So I came up with a benzoid report, and as you guys know, And what that was I was in Benzie County, Michigan. And some people in Benzie County used to call themselves benzoids, although I don't think that's in use all that much these days. I don't know. I was over there for breakfast this morning and didn't hear the word once, but so anywho, so that's how I come up with the benzoid report. And it was just a show about whatever the heck I wanted to talk about because that's what it was, and that's what it still is. It's just I've renamed it to Mike Dell's World. I want to say somewhere past 100 episodes. I don't know. I have all the way back to episode, I believe, 36 or 39. I forget in the feed. You guys can go look for it. It's at MikeDell.com. If I've got it, it's there. But I haven't been able to find any of the episodes prior to that. I wish I could. Even on the Wayback Machine, they're just not there. And, part of the problem, I was using different hosts and different ways of hosting podcasts, and it just, stuff got lost to the bit bucket. You would think, there's things out on the internet that people would desperately want to get rid of, that they put up, and now they want to get rid of it. But I got the opposite problem. I got 30-something episodes of my podcast that I have no idea where they're at. I have some old hard drive. I always keep every hard drive, all the computers that I've had, so I never get rid of a hard drive. So I have a pile of old hard drives out in my garage, and I do believe I have enough apparatus to hook them up. Maybe I'll have to buy an adapter of some sort, but at some point, maybe this winter, I'll get all those hard drives together, set them in the office here, and slowly but surely see what I can find on there. But I know for a fact that they've got to be on there somewhere. But I don't know. But that's basically why I started podcasting, is because I just wanted to talk into a microphone officially. And now it's funny, I've been on several terrestrial radio stations, had a regular show on one. And if I wanted to go back to that, I may at some point. And, I've been on as a guest on a couple of other radio stations. I've been on a national radio station. I've been on TV, all this stuff. And you know what? It's still, my favorite is doing a podcast, doing this and doing, the one I do weekly for Blueberry, my employer. And yeah, this is great. Maybe never make a living at actually talking into the microphone. But that's all right. Get to do it as a hobby. As another hobby, I do ham radio, and I am going to have ham radio related episodes on Sundays, since Sundays is the day that I usually play ham radio. So, yeah. Anyway, that'll do it for this one. Like I said, we're going to have a lot of episodes this month, so we'll try to keep them short and to the point. Tomorrow I've got a topic. I already picked the topic, so we're going to go ahead and, so we're going to talk about first snow stats and records, kind of weather records for the fall and winter around Michigan, or specifically Traverse City. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, I got to do a little more research, but we should have some stuff about that. Now, Wednesday, going to do a car show. It's going to be, when is it time to send a car to the junkyard? I have 2 relevant cases parked in my driveway that we need to talk about, so we'll see. Thursday, I'm going to do some current event-related stuff on every Thursday, but this particular Thursday, I want to talk about the news sources that I trust these days. With all the craziness going on in the world, what news stories can you trust? I'll tell you what I do, and, agree, disagree, tell me something that I'm missing, or tell me I'm full of crap. I don't care, but, let's interact. Talk about current events. Friday, we're going to do a history one. Since that is November 5th, we're going to talk about Guy Fawkes Night over in Europe. Saturday is my choice, host choice, and I want to talk about the F-35 fighter and basically fighter aviation in general. And on Sunday, of course, I got a ham radio episode, and that one's going to talk about schedules and nets, and what that is and what they sound like. I'm hoping to record a couple of nets, or at least parts of nets, and tell you what, so you can actually hear what that sounds like on the radio. So everybody have a good evening. Happy November 1st. Rabbit, 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 as they say. And we'll catch you tomorrow.